Have you ever wondered what Greek philosophers were doing during their day? Sitting and thinking about clever things, or walking around the city, having discussions with everyone? What did they eat? Did they have jobs? And where did they get money from? In this video, we'll answer all those questions and show you a common day of a Greek philosopher. The day starts early, likely before the sun is fully up. The philosopher's home is simple, with little more than basic furniture, a bed, a small table, and a few scrolls or books. The philosopher would wake up early to meditate, contemplate, and prepare his mind for the day's intellectual challenges. While some philosophers may have had assistants or slaves to help with basic tasks, most would live simply and do much of their work themselves. A philosopher like Socrates, for example, was known for his frugal lifestyle, often forgoing physical comforts in order to focus on his intellectual pursuits. In the mid-morning, the philosopher gets ready to teach or engage in discussions. Unlike modern universities, there were no classrooms. Education took place in the Agora, the public square, or even private homes. These places were full of citizens who wanted to engage in intellectual exchange. Philosophers like Plato taught students about ideas like justice, virtue, and the nature of reality. Socrates, on the other hand, would ask questions that challenged people's beliefs about life. For example, he might ask someone in the market, "What is courage?" or "Can virtue be taught?" Conversations often turned into debates, which Socrates saw as an opportunity to dig deeper into the truth, rather than just provide answers. Food played an important role in the life of a Greek philosopher, but it wasn't the focus of their day. A typical meal was simple, nutritious, and consisted of local ingredients. For breakfast, philosophers might have bread with olive oil or fruit, a light start to the day. Lunch could include vegetables, olives, and cheese, accompanied by wine diluted with water. Dinner was often the largest meal, typically consisting of grains, vegetables, legumes, and fish or meat, depending on availability and wealth. By midday, the philosopher spends time writing, studying, or observing the world around him. This is when many philosophers, including Aristotle, would begin examining nature. Aristotle spent a lot of time researching biology and the natural world, but many Greek philosophers focused more on the human experience, thinking about the nature of knowledge, morality, and existence. Writing was an essential part of their work. For instance, Plato recorded the dialogues of Socrates, and Aristotle's works on logic and ethics laid the foundation for much of Western thought. The afternoon was often a time for reflection on these ideas, sometimes shared with close students or other philosophers. The clothing of a Greek philosopher was similarly simple and practical. They typically wore a tunic called a chiton, which was made of linen or wool. For warmth, they might wear a cloak or himation. The garments were plain, no flashy patterns or colors, showing the philosopher's focus on the inner life rather than fashionable appearances. Philosophers didn't wear jewelry or expensive clothing. Their modest life mirrored their ideals of simplicity and virtue. The style was not about impressing others or showing off wealth, but about comfort and practicality, allowing them to move freely and engage in their intellectual pursuits. In the evening, the philosopher might go to his home, but the day isn't over yet. This is when some of the most personal philosophical work might happen, as the philosopher reflects on the day's discussions and writes down new thoughts. The evening often involved dinner and conversation with friends or other philosophers. These meals weren't just about food, they were an opportunity to share ideas, challenge each other, and learn. For someone like Plato, evenings might be spent at his academy, where students and famous philosophers gathered to discuss everything from the nature of reality to the ideal political system. These conversations, often lasting well into the night, were essential for shaping the way they viewed the world and influencing the generations to come. But did they work on a regular job and how they earned a living? One of the primary roles of Greek philosophers was that of a teacher. Many philosophers founded schools or academies where they taught their philosophy to others. Plato, for example, founded the Academy in Athens, one of the first institutions of higher learning in Western history. Aristotle, Plato's student, later opened the Lyceum, where he taught his own philosophical ideas. These philosophers didn't work in the traditional sense, as they weren't employed by a government or company. Instead, they taught philosophy and encouraged critical thinking, often attracting students who were willing to pay for their education. Teaching was considered an honorable job and a way to contribute to society by cultivating knowledge and virtue. It was also a form of intellectual work that could involve public debate, mentoring students, and conducting research. Did they have time for entertainment and fun? And did they even need it? For Greek philosophers, entertainment was not about games or luxury. Instead, it was about intellectual stimulation and public performances that were an important part of Athenian society. The Greeks were known for their cultural scene, where drama, music, and poetry played significant roles. Philosophers, though focused on intellectual goals, would sometimes go to the theaters either by attending different performances. The works of playwrights like Sophocles, Euripides, and Aristophanes would have been frequent topics of conversation. These playwrights often tackled moral, political, and philosophical themes, making their works a source of intellectual entertainment for thinkers. For the philosopher, entertainment often came in the form of lively debates and discussions. These were not only serious thoughts into truth, but also a form of intellectual sport. Philosophers would engage with each other and with students in informal gatherings at the Agora or private homes. These debates were stimulating, dynamic, and could be as entertaining as any performance, as long as one enjoyed mental challenge and discovery. At the end of the day, we are all humans, and after a hard-working, or it's better to say hard-thinking day, philosophers go to sleep, waiting for the next day. Their lives show us that you don't need wealth or power to make a difference in the world. Sometimes the greatest influence comes from ideas that challenge the way we think and help us better understand who we are.